Okay, welcome back for another chapter in our book. It's been a while since I posted one of these chapters up, and we'd left it on chapter 5 where Jeremy James had uncovered what he thought was his box of buried treasure. It turned out to be a very wet kind of treasure. Okay. So chapter 6 is called The Doctor. Now, I think we've probably all been in this situation once or twice, so maybe we'll be able to relate to one of our own experiences. Okay, The Doctor. Jeremy James wasn't very well. In the night he'd had to call for Mummy, and he'd been very sick, horribly smelly sick, all over his bedclothes, and Mummy had had to stroke his hair and sit by him for a while, which was rather nice. And the crispy clean sheets were rather nice too. But being ill wasn't so nice, especially the being sick part, which was very unnice. Even Daddy had come in for a few moments while Jeremy James was being sick, and it took a lot to get Daddy out of bed for anything. But Mummy said he looked even worse than Jeremy James felt, so he should go back to bed. And Daddy had said something like, Warple Doctor Semantics, and Mummy had said, in the morning. And Daddy had said, Semantics Dr. Warple. And Jeremy James had said, Gloop. And Daddy went away very quickly, and Mummy stayed with Jeremy James. Now that it was morning, Jeremy James felt a bit better. He didn't feel all better, but just sort of a bit better. He felt better enough to get up and play, but not better enough to eat his cornflakes and drink his milk. Anyway, Mummy said that he wasn't better enough to get up and play either, so he stayed in bed and Mum phoned for the doctor. When Mummy came back from phoning, she was holding a little packet in her hand. It was a cardboard packet with lots of bright colours on it, and Jeremy James knew, even before Mummy had said anything, just what packet it was and where Mummy had found it. Now then, said Mummy, and this wasn't Mummy's "Are you feeling better, darling" voice at all. Last night, Jeremy James, when I changed your pillow, I found this, and it's empty. Yes, said Jeremy James. A big box of licorice all sorts, said Mummy. Said Jeremy James. I suppose you ate them all, said Mummy. Oh yes, said Jeremy James. Nobody helped me. After you'd cleaned your teeth, said Mummy. Said Jeremy James. Then, said Mummy, you were sick. Well, no, said Jeremy James. I wasn't sick then, Mummy. Not then. Oh, said Mummy. No, I didn't feel sick then at all. I went to sleep, and that's what I did, then. Jeremy James, said Mummy, you must never, ever eat sweets before you go to sleep. You must never eat anything after you've cleaned your teeth. You must never, never eat a whole box of licorice all sorts, all in one go. Do you understand? Yes, Mummy, said Jeremy James. One licorice all sort, or maybe two, said Mummy, and that's enough. Yes, said Jeremy James, though inside he was saying to himself that one licorice all sort, or maybe two, wasn't enough, and would never be enough, and only a grown-up would think that it was enough, because grown-ups only liked little helpings of good things, and big helpings of nasty things like vegetables. Mummy would never say, for instance, one potato, or maybe two, and that's enough, or one cornflake and one carrot. Oh no, you could have as many of those as you like, or didn't like. But ask for one mandarin orange, or one bit of chocolate, or more licorice all sorts, and all you'd get was, no more, they're not good for you. Dr. Bassett was the tallest man in the world. He was taller than the house, because when he came into Jeremy James's room, he had to bend down so that his head wouldn't go through the roof. He was taller than the apple tree, because the apple tree wasn't as tall as the house. So he must have been taller than Daddy, because Daddy couldn't reach the top of the apple tree. Except when he borrowed Mr. Robertson's ladder, and even then, he usually couldn't get to the top, because either he or the ladder kept falling down. Dr. Bassett was a very tall man. Well then, old chap, said Dr. Bassett, how are we feeling? Who? Said Jeremy James. You, said Dr. Bassett. Oh, said Jeremy James, I'm very well, thank you. I've been sick. Ah, said Dr. Bassett. Yes, he ate a whole box of licorice all sorts before he went to bed, said Mummy. It wasn't before I went to bed, said Jeremy James, it was after I went to bed. Ah, said Dr. Bassett, that does make a difference. Dr. Bassett had a very interesting looking black bag, which was full of chocolate, tins of fruits, toy soldiers and railway engines. Until he opened it. And then it was full of very boring things like you-know-whats and what-you-call-its. Jeremy James was poked with a you-know-what, and he pulled a face. Then he was tickled with a what-you-call-it, and he giggled. Then Dr. Bassett looked in his mouth, felt his head, and tapped his chest and ruffled his hair. He'll be all right, said Dr. Bassett. No, I won't, said Jeremy James, because I'm not ill, where you were looking, and you were looking in the wrong place. Ah, said Dr. Bassett. Jeremy James, said Mummy. And where should I have looked, said Dr. Bassett. In my tummy, said Jeremy James. That's where I'm ill, because that's where the pain was. Of course, said Dr. Bassett. Aren't I a silly old doctor, not looking in your tummy? Let's have a look at it then. And Dr. Bassett had a very close look at Jeremy James's tummy. He bent right over, like the beanstalk must have done when Jack chopped it down, and Jeremy James could see through his grey hair onto his shiny head. And Dr. Bassett pointed his little torch onto Jeremy James's tummy and studied the tummy for a very long time. Well, said Dr. Bassett, you were quite right, Jeremy James. There's a pink licorice orsot in there, and it's been having a fight with a blue licorice orsot, and that's what all the trouble was about. If you'd just eaten all the blue licorice orsots, or if you'd just eaten the pink ones, they couldn't have had a fight, and you wouldn't have been ill. So it's a good thing that you told me to look, isn't it? Yes, said Jeremy James. Anyway, said Dr. Bassett, turning to Mummy, he's got a bit of a temperature, and it's probably a touch of flu. As a matter of fact, I should keep him in bed for a day or two, and give him plenty of liquids, and he'll soon let you know when he's better himself. I'll write you out a prescription. Now this was all very strange, because Dr. Bassett hadn't been in the house before. And last time Dr. Bassett had come to the house, it hadn't been to see Jeremy James, but to see Daddy, because Daddy had been dying, and dying very loudly, with lots of foofs and fours and humps and ahs. And Dr. Bassett had Jackie the Beanstalk all over Daddy too, and poked him and tickled him, and Daddy had said something about it being the end. And Dr. Bassett had said it wasn't quite the end, but it was definitely, most certainly, a touch of flu. And if Daddy had a touch of flu, then Jeremy James had a touch of flu now. It was all very complicated, but Jeremy James had managed to work it out before Dr. Bassett folded himself in two to get back through the door. Excuse me, said Jeremy James, because that was what you always said to grown-ups when you wanted them to turn and look at you. Yes, old chap, said Dr. Bassett, turning to look at Jeremy James. Can you, asked Jeremy James, get a touch of flu through eating too many licorice allsorts? Ah, said Dr. Bassett, I'll have to ask the Royal Society to look into that one. But as far as I know, most people find a different way of getting it. Well, did my daddy get it through eating too many licorice allsorts? Said Jeremy James. Dr. Bassett seven-league booted back to the bed and whispered very secretly, That's highly problematical. You see, it's only very clever people that get a touch of flu through eating too many licorice allsorts. Now, do you think that's how you got yours? Jeremy James had a quick think. Because you have to have a quick think before you answer a question like that. Well, said Jeremy James, I think that maybe I possibly might have done. And Jeremy James sat back in his bed and tried to work out whether it was better to be clever and eat licorice allsorts and get a touch of flu, or not to be clever and not eat licorice allsorts and not get a touch of flu. The best thing might be to be clever and eat licorice allsorts and not to get a touch of flu. But Dr. Bassett had already gone, and it was too late to ask him whether anyone might have been clever enough to do that. Well, that took a bit of getting my head around at the end of that chapter. I'll have to watch this video back again. The next chapter is called Timothy. Now, Timothy's the boy who lives next door to Jeremy James, and they don't always get on. Okay? But we'll read that one later on, maybe tomorrow. Okay? See you then. Take care.